You might agree that honesty is the best policy, unless we're talking about sex. Did you know that a third, that's 1 in 3 people in monogamous relationships admit to cheating? Stats don't lie. People do. Take a look at you and those around you. You wouldn't be here if nature had not made sex, in part, so intensely pleasurable. But for a few of us to get those sexual desires met, resort to a gray zone. A gray zone characterized by 3 things: false impressions, a misrepresentation of truth, and dishonesty. For example, do you know singles who are having sex with more than one? Or married people tantalizingly available to more than one? Tomorrow I turn 32. It's fun, but according to my South Asian parents, that's 2 years past my deadline for getting married. Aaron, isn't it time you settle down with a nice girl? My mother has been asking for the last decade. You know, I started out on that path when I was younger and in college. I joined a singles club to find the one, anyone actually. New members were asked to give a 3-minute introduction, but there was only one problem with that. My stutter back then was much worse than it is now. So when my turn came, with my legs shaking, I stood up and said, "Hello, my name does not come out, so I'll have to spell it out. It's A-R-O-N, and I'm looking for a girlfriend." Most of the women looked away, and I sat down in shame, knowing I would leave empty-handed. Yet, we've learned about optimism, haven't we? So at the mix and mingling session, there was a beautiful surprise. A young student with an hourglass figure flashed a 1,000-watt smile at me and said, "Hi, I'm Angel. I admire your courage." As she slipped her phone number into my palm. I won't be leaving empty-handed after all. But now my jaw drops, and I'm like, what should I say next? So I say, do you want to meet for a date sometime? Without hesitation, Angel replied, "Now's good. Would you like to go to the cafe on the other side of campus?" Did this angel just drop from heaven? That's the first time a woman has ever asked that straightforwardly to go for a date. But now I don't have time to think, so we just walk out. And as we walk to the other side of campus, and I'm sure you've got this advice from your friends too for first dates. Be yourself, and don't say anything stupid. Don't say anything stupid, please. We get some snacks, sit down, and I begin. It might be a full moon tonight, won't it? Men, have you started a date like that before? Angel, however, seems to have eyes only for me as she looks deeply into them and says, Aaron, do you like cupcakes? Cupcakes? At this point, I want to bite my lip because what I really want to say is that cupcakes, cupcake. I'd love to take you back to my dorm room, rip your clothes off, and show you how much I like cupcakes. But do you think I said that? No! I ask another stupid question. Do you have a boyfriend? Go on. At this point, Angel's facial expression changes. She wasn't as happy that she was. Aaron, I'll be honest, as she rummages through her bag and says, I'm engaged. She pulls out a ring and slides it onto her ring finger. But it's not going well. Maybe we could go back to your place. What? What kind of angel is this? Engaged, but wants to go back to my place? So what should I say? What should I do? My heart says no, mother would never approve of this. But the second most important part of my body cannot let go of the let's go back to my place. And I want to say, yes, let's go. But at this point, I didn't want to judge why an engaged woman like her was at that singles event. She was honest with me, but was she honest with her fiancé? I was too afraid to ask, and I didn't want to judge. At this point, though, I lost my attraction towards her, made a limp excuse, and left. Aww. That was the last time I saw Angel, but it was my first introduction to the gray zone. Angel had a false appearance. She wasn't as single as I thought she was. I was misrepresenting my own truth. Sure, in time she could have been my one. On that night, though, I just wanted sex. We both of us being dishonest in our own ways. Have you experienced something similar before? Meeting someone where either they were misrepresenting who they were, or you being guilty of it? Plenty of people nowadays live in this gray zone of assumed monogamy, when it's actually not. Anyway, I go home, lonely, no, frustrated, and horny. And what does a guy do when he goes home alone? He opens the incognito tab of Google. And let me tell you, these weren't cat videos that I watched. I typed in www.pornhub.com. You know it. And since this is a speech about honesty in sex, it was porn. For how many hours that night, I'm not sure. But it definitely was. But it's not such a laughing matter. Pornhub analyzes their own stats. It turns out just last year, as a race, we watched 4.5 billion hours of porn. To put that into perspective, that's 500,000 years in 1 year. That's a lot of porn. A lot. Why is it? I believe a big reason is that porn is a symptom of the gray zone. We just aren't honest when we want to experience sex with others, especially if multiple partners are involved. Better to sit in private and turn on the incognito tab. The years would go on, and this cycle would continue. I'd meet women, not be upfront and straightforward with what I wanted to explore, and neither would they be. A few dates would turn into a few weeks, a few months. I'd watch too many nights of porn that I'm willing to admit. And as the years went on, I was like, why do we assume that monogamy is the default way of romantic relationships? I knew people who were outwardly monogamous, but inwardly seeing multiple partners. I didn't think that this was an intelligent way to live. Mother Nature does not suddenly shut off our sexual desires once we commit to the one. And if you found that off switch, please tell me where it's located. Most of us, the sexual desire continues. And I completely respect you if you're monogamous and decide not to explore. But for a third of us, they do want to explore. I didn't want to be the guy who commits to one, but then resorts to the gray zone on the side to get his desires met. And neither did I want to be with a partner who had to be dishonest to get her desires met. I knew there had to be a better way for this to work. I want friendship, yes. I want romance, yes. I want sex, yes. But in a spirit of honesty with all parties involved. I decided to do intense research into society and sexuality. I read books, blogs, listened to podcasts, and even read 50 Shades of Grey. Only 50? I finally stumbled upon one book called Sex at Dawn, The Prehistoric Origins of Modern Sexuality. It says how we mate, why we stray, and what it means for modern relationships. Yes, finally some evidence to shine some light on this gray matter. The most fascinating fact from that book was monogamy evolved only 10,000 years ago when nomads turned to agriculture. 10,000 years? For 190,000 years before that, adults lived multi-partnered relationship lives. No secrecy or dishonesty required. But in modern times, shame and guilt leads to cheating, lies, and lots of porn. The book also says that our close ape cousins, the bonobos, have lived a multi-partnered and honest lifestyle for millennia. Now, I know this might not sound very exciting to you, but sure it was for me because it was one step closer to eliminating the gray zone, which you might want to eliminate as well. But I can't go back 5 minutes in time, let alone 10,000 years, to find someone to ask, how did you do it? How did you have multiple partners? I knew there would be someone here in this time who had figured it out. So I go back onto my trusted incognito tab of Google and type healthy and honest sex. Then healthy and honest sex for middle-aged singles. Because, you know, I'm growing older. And then I found this book called Mode 1, Let the Women Know What You're Really Thinking, by this dating coach by the name of Alan Roger Curry. He's broad-shouldered, looks you directly in the eye, and most importantly has found decades of success with having multiple partners through honesty. I'm excited, so I decide to hire him, and we meet on Skype. Aaron, remember, honesty is the best policy. If you want to explore with multiple women, make sure you say that to them as soon as possible. Don't be like many verbal cowards who pretend to be monogamous but actually aren't. Get out of that vague and ambiguous zone. Women do appreciate directness. To practice sharing your intentions face-to-face, try speed dating. Sharing my intentions face-to-face weren't dating apps with swiping left and right meant to avoid precisely that. But then I realized those apps are the epitome of the gray zone. You don't know who is on the other side of your screen. But then, what about jealousy and neediness and possessiveness? How do you get rid of these negative feelings that most of us have when a partner of us explores with another? Listen, young man, I will teach you one word, and that word is compersion. It's the feeling of joy you feel when a partner of yours explores sex and/or romance with others. You'll have to experience it to know it. What did I have to lose? He clearly has more success than I have, so I signed up for a speed dating event. Imagine that you're at a speed dating event at the loft of a dimly lit local bar. Tables are set up, one couple per table. Welcome to speed dating. Here are the rules. You're here to meet one, maybe anyone. You'll chat for 5 minutes. At the end of 5 minutes, women rotate clockwise, men stay at home. Please don't forget to check off your matches at the end of the night, and mutual chemistry matches will be sent to you via email in the morning. Now, take your seats. We'll be starting in 5. All right. Now, I would have to perform and share my intentions. So I'd go on my first mini date a bit nervous, and I'd start, listen, I find you very attractive. I'd like to explore both sex and close friendship with you. I'd say that in the first 2 minutes, remembering what I didn't do with Angel. Excuse me, do you say this to all women? Let's just focus on you for now. But no guy has ever said that to me before. There's a first for everything. I believe that honesty is the best policy. This saves us both time and potential heartbreak. Plus, I don't want to get friend-zoned. To my surprise, after a few events, I would get a few matches. And then those matches would meet on longer dates, where I'd inevitably bring up the fact that a lot of us live in the gray zone, and I didn't want to be that guy. And then to my bigger surprise, a few women said, you know what, you're honest about it, so let's give it a shot. To practice being very honest in our sexual lives, even if it's with multiple partners. To make a long story short, now I have experienced how it feels to have multiple relationship partners. The main benefit is that we have lost our shame around our own sexuality. If a woman I'm seeing feels attraction towards another man, she's definitely free to act on those, and so am I. There's no gray zone to worry about anymore. Was this simple? No. It took years to get the mindset right, but ultimately you learn it. Compersion is a real thing and the opposite of jealousy. Today, let's think about those in the gray zone. Maybe some of you here. How can we completely eliminate it from our lives so we can live lives without secrecy nor dishonesty? If you're monogamous or married and have no intention of exploring with multiple partners, consider having a talk with your partner to deepen your intimacy. If you're single or married and have partners on the side, decide to be honest with all parties involved. And if you're stuck in the gray zone, afraid to go out and start new relationships, know that honesty is a skill that can be developed. And also try speed dating. Together, I believe that we can eliminate the gray zone of dishonesty. In our sex lives, I don't think that honesty is the best policy, is sufficient for modern times. So let's transform that to making honesty our only policy.